right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Robbie.
Back. It's November 14th. The year it's 2003. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 729.
729 it is, and yeah, you've had a tough week and an enlightening week, you say?
Yeah, enlightening, tough. I mean, they usually are, right? Sometimes the hardest weeks are the most enlightening weeks. But yeah, it was a rough one. We were gone last week. We'll go into that here in a little bit. But yeah, it's listen, it's November, mid-November, one of my favorite months of the year. You got Thanksgiving coming up. You got people, inexplicably and irresponsibly putting up their Christmas lights early and lighting them, which is just disappointing. I mean, fine, put them up. That's fine. Put them up. I know you got to get a schedule. You got people to put up lights for you, and they got to get this shit done. But just leave them off. Okay, just you can turn them on the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. It's fine. But just let us have Thursday. Let us have Thursday. But it's a gorgeous day here, not a cloud in the sky. Beautiful November day. And hope everybody is doing well. You had not a lot of racing, but a couple races. Then you got the last North American. I mean, you can count Ironman Cozumel, I guess, next week. We just don't have any racing, but I got Arizona this weekend. But yeah, it's been a busy last week. Hope everybody's been doing well. And again, thank you for, not that you had control over it, but thank you for your patience last week as we went podcast less, which is, I think we've only done that twice, maybe in the history of the show.
Yeah, I think it's twice. I ended up putting up an older one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I put up. I relinked the microcasts that we did last year that seemed to be popular.
Micro goals? Is that the
micro
one you put
goals?
up?
Yeah.
Yes, nicely done. I didn't know you did that. Look
Yeah.
at you.
Yeah, I just threw it in there and gave links to the other two. I did the run one, I believe, and then
get a lot of good feedback on that on that cast. So well done.
Yeah,
well done. Way to cover for me.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that here today. If it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. I know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general in terms of valuables. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as coaches, but also as human beings on this planet. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes in their very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships and everyone in between, if not all the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes way overcomplicated and confusing. It is a solid space to ask questions and get great feedback. We'll go in there about every 3 to 5, sometimes 6 weeks, do a little bit of Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions as we can on the cast. But that is it. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. But we definitely have an agenda. And that's to help keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yep, we do. And I know you got a lot of things on your mind probably. And I think that, of course, I've been thinking about a lot of stuff since you've been gone and dealing with everything. And I think it'd be a good sort of baseline for things today if we want to maybe open up a little bit and share some of the stuff we were just talking about. I think it's good. It's always a good reminder, man. There's life is out there. Get living,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it was. So, we didn't do any podcasting last week. My grandmother, Mimi, who I've actually talked about quite a few times on the show, my mom's mom, she's the last grandparents I have left. My mom's last parent, obviously, but I got she'd been in the hospital a few days in Nashville, and which is, I guess, took a very, very significant turn for the worse 2 Saturday nights ago. And I woke up Sunday morning and my mom just sent me a text and was like, hey, can you call me? And I was like, you just know, right?
Yep.
When that's like, These days, it's like if someone calls you, that's a family member, you think something bad's happened because most people just text nowadays. Nobody picks up the phone.
I know.
Yeah, right. It's like, but I knew that, like, if I ever call my mom, she's like, she picks up and she goes, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yes, I'm just calling to talk."
I know.
Anyway, she texted, said, "Hey, can you call me?" And I picked up the phone and called her, obviously immediately. I was still laying in bed, and she just said she had taken a wrong, a really turn for the worse overnight. And she just said, I'm not sure if she's going to make it much longer. And I don't even know if you'll make it here in time, or even tell you to come. Right. Cause you don't really know if it's going to happen immediately. You never know. Something like that's impossible to predict. And I just said, well, I'm coming anyway. And had no idea if I was going to make it there in time. So throw my stuff in a suitcase. And if, to give you any idea of the rush that I was in, I threw all of my stuff in a suitcase. I took every Apple phone charger or Apple laptop charger from the house and forgot my toiletry bag, with my toothpaste, all the essentials. Had that, and then just hit the road. Is an insanely, and it's not funny, but I'm just very thankful of the way that we have crafted what we do and the message that we've hopefully sent on the podcast, because, I thought to myself as I'm getting in the car and packing up, like, I want to take my laptop regardless, but, I thought, well, I thought to myself, my office is on the way out. Small deviation, maybe a 10-minute deviation from, the course. And I thought to myself, you could always just swing in, grab the podcast gear. You never know what's going to happen. And I just remember telling myself, but you would never forgive yourself.
Yeah.
If you pulled in the parking lot 10 minutes late and that was the choice you made. And so I obviously didn't stop and just kept going. It was a very stressful drive, like just trying to get there in time and try to be there. My cousin Kelly was flying back from Florida. My cousin Jacob was flying in from Virginia. And it was like everybody was trying to get there. And lucky enough, I made it there. I was straight to the hospital, was able to talk to her and say goodbye. My whole family was there. And then things were just touch and go there at the hospital. And finally, we decided to move her to hospice on Tuesday. And then because we just knew that she was, she is 94 years old. She had lived really just an incredible life, one of the most amazing women I've ever been around and been influenced by, and then ended up passing away Wednesday at 10:30, and then we had the service and everything on Saturday. So obviously it was disconnected, so it was communicated often and thoroughly with the athletes and our athletes that I work with, just to make them, and they were really amazing on allowing me to totally disconnect and not have to worry about stuff, which is, as you know, is really hard for me to disconnect and to take my foot off the gas and not. I feel disconnected, right? We talked about it before the podcast, but it was just really important to me to spend that time with family, to spend that time with myself in grieving, and then also just be there for my mom, who lives alone and was losing her mom, her last parent. It was really difficult. I'm very, very thankful that I was able to say goodbye and have that moment. And then, because I had the same moment with my grandfather, her husband, I was able to actually say goodbye, and have time with him in his room before he chose to be taken off the ventilator. So I was very thankful for that. And it was just, listen, I'm not the first person to ever say this, but it sucks that we need things like this to happen in our lives to remind us of things, right? Life is so busy and so crazy, and things happen, and everybody changes their, not everybody, but you think about the amount of times the average person changes their Facebook profile photo to the latest crisis in the world, or the war, or the shooting, or the health, whatever it is. And it's like, but what stays us, what changes? It was a reminder of, stress, and how the body handles it. We can talk about that in a little bit, but it was also really ultimately just, a reminder about my grandmother, and how, I said this, I had a prepared speech at her at her service. But when I got up there before I started reading it, because I knew that I probably wasn't going to make it all the way through without breaking down, but I just started off and kind of freelance for a little bit, and I just said, I in amidst all the sadness and sad, just really hard grief of the week, I've also felt like an odd level of strength, and I think that comes from looking at her, as she's not able to open her eyes, anymore, and knowing and feeling confident and at peace, really. Obviously sad that she was gone, but knowing that she legit had no regrets. I mean, she maxed out life. She never said no, much to the frustration, I think, of my mom and my aunt so frequently in her 90s. Like, she still wanted to drive, she still wanted to go to parties. She still went out to eat with friends. I mean, she was so active. And one of the two things that, and I was talking to my mom about this on the way home, was that, three things that I just marveled about her, but I think are so important for us all to remember. One is I was just shocked that she had made it 20 years after my grandfather passed away. That's just, you don't see that much anymore, right? You see most, a lot of times it shrinks their lifespan. And she lived for 20 years, but in the two reasons that I believe she did, or the three reasons. One is she was always moving. She didn't like to sit still. She always wanted to be on the go. She sitting still, and obviously she was terrible, like most of us are, and especially like most people of that generation. To them, doctors really don't know shit. They're just I've had this before. Back in my day, we used to be back to work, and she was a horrible patient. But she did not want to sit still. She just wanted to go. And the reason she wanted to go was two things. One, she was still connected with people and community. She was still going out with friends. She was still going to church. She was still going to parties. I mean, she was still going to events. She had a true connection and a true community. And then the other part of it was she had a purpose. She gave very generously to an organization that's very important in our family called Our Kids. It does nonprofit work in Nashville to help sexually and physically abused kids who can't afford care. And the building's named after my grandmother and my grandfather. But she not only gave, she volunteered still.
Yeah.
And the board. I mean, she had
That's
this,
awesome.
so she had people and she had purpose. And that drive to connect and be with people, and that purpose to help people and to change people and to make a difference. I mean, those are all things we can all take, to and ask ourselves in our own checklist, like, are we doing any of this? Do we have a purpose? Are we just living? Are we just, is the world revolving around us? Are we trying to impact the world in a positive way? Are we taking care of ourselves? Right? Are we? I mean, to swear, like, my mom sent me a picture of her before the first day at a hospital, and I swear to God, she looked 80. I mean, she's rocking some on kicks. I mean, she totally looks like, I mean, she's in like her 70s and she's 94. And it just, there's so, in that, and then, being in hospice, I told you just before we went live, was anybody that listens to this that works in hospice, in a care facility, you are special people. I don't know how you do it, but you are on this planet probably just for that. But I told you how odd of an experience it was, because, and I thought to myself a million times, this is how the world should be. Not obviously with sadness and people dying and that kind of thing, but every single person in there, you knew the other people in there that were struggling, they were about to lose them. Every single person in that building, whether it was our nurse, whether it was the doctor or the chaplain, the janitor, the person in the front that let you in, every single person looked you in the eye. Every single person asked how you were doing. Every person meant it, and everyone asked if you needed anything, because they all knew, right? You're having a rough day. You're not in here because the world is unicorns and rainbows. You're in here because life's hard, and something in your life is about to change drastically. And it just reminded me so much about how we can go through life and never give a second thought to the fact that maybe somebody is going through that. Because once you leave that door, once you left hospice and went to, out to get breakfast, no one knows what you're going through. So people just kind of treat you like life is good or treat you like they don't care. And just how different, the world would be if we truly, looked up and cared about strangers and just people in general, right? Asking how they're doing, and then also just having maybe a different level of patience and grace that, somebody, has a bad day and honks their horn at you. Maybe that was me on the way to hospital trying to get there on time.
Mm-hmm.
I laid the horn multiple times trying to get there. That's not obviously the case for everybody, but that a lot of people have bad days. A lot of people are going through rough times. Not a lot of people want to talk about it and don't feel safe talking about it. So they just don't. Doesn't mean they're not going through stuff. And so there's a lot to unpack there and directions to go. But yeah, it was a rough week. And I missed doing the podcast. I missed having this outlet, to talk. But I also was really proud of myself for disconnecting the way that I did, and just because I think a lot of times, which to be honest with you, I don't know that I would have always done that. And not taking not taking actual time to be present in the moment, and which I think is a defense mechanism. For a lot of us, we want to be distracted. We want to work. We want to do things because we don't want to necessarily feel or think about what's going on. But it was really enlightening to do that for the whole week of just being present and having those conversations and thoughts. And it made a very sad, week, a lot better. And I think it allowed me to deal with it a lot better than I would have, or just in the right way, of being present and being okay to grieve and disconnect from, and remembering what's important. Because I know that was being there and being present and being available, right? That was another word that popped in my mind all week, was just being available for my mom and for my aunt, be able to do things, to run to the store for them, or grab them coffee, or run errands, or do laundry, or take the dog out, like just being available, how helpful that is. These small things. And if I wasn't able to do that, and if I didn't, or had a 9-to-5 job, or I couldn't get off work for a week, or do this, or didn't want to disconnect, that never would happen. So it's just, like I said, there's a lot to unpack there, and I could definitely keep the suitcase open and keep taking clothes out. But before I make too much of a pile, I'll let you have the floor.
Well, I was thinking, about the fact that you're like let go of the podcast, and back in the day, it's probably because we don't do it on a headset anymore. That would have been a lot easier just to grab and go with it.
You're so right. We had honestly about that. I was like, maybe I still got the headset. I totally thought about that.
Yeah, but it was one of those things, man, where I was just thinking about how you said, your stress level was down and you were kind of in the moment there, and how, really it was, your life became sort of stripped away. It was sort of like, focused on, the essence of things and mortality. And to me, that's what is so powerful about it, and I've done, obviously my dad went through that, and he had a hospice in-home care, and those people are unbelievable, and I've always said it's kind of like, we are who we are, what we expose ourselves to. And if you're in the world of hospice, like all the time, talk about just being on the pulse of what really matters, sort of like we go through life, and, I was, a million things. And yeah, we didn't have our podcast, so we didn't get to talk these things through. We were kind of just texting, and how, that can be. But it's, I was thinking about a lot of things. I'm always thinking about, back to the days when, I was in corporate world, and all I did was just sit there at the desk and just be miserable, kind of. And and it was just sort of like passing hours. I was kind of just faking work and doing all these kind of things. And it's sort of like, man, you know, and then you get into doing what you're saying is she, you know, Mimi had her passion and she liked to live and do things and things like that. I mean, that's what we have to do. How are we going to chase that? And how are we going to, you know, do the things in life that are really important to us? And I think it is a great reminder. I went through that with my dad, and I sat there the same feeling, man. I was just like, I knew he was at peace, and it became so, I felt so grounded in that moment. I don't know if that's kind of the feeling you had too. It was like, man, when you strip the essence of all the, you know, bullshit out there and just like get to the core of what's going on in life, and, you know, how important it is to have loved ones and be there for them and that sort of thing, that there's just so much. It's a force of nature to be in that situation. And I think that, you know, it's sort of like, I mean, if you want to make a little bit of an analogy to triathlon, when I talk about we are what we expose ourselves to, you know, you and I have been through many, many races. We've coached many, many people. We just have a different sense about it when, you know, like you always have people doing their first Ironman and you remember what that was like, but it's sort of like, you know, it's almost like when you're struggling and you go see, you know, like a priest or something at a funeral, how calm they are. They've seen it so much. And the same with the hospice is like they understand the essence of it and are very comfortable with it. And that's why life is just about creating experiences and doing things. And we want to build up our nature and the way we do things. And and I just think it's so important that you have to almost go through it. And there's just these weird enlightening moments that we see. And I'm sure you've had several over the last week, and reflecting on her, and like everything you say about her is so amazing, because it's like, that's living, man. I mean, nobody lives forever. And she just tried to squeeze every ounce out of life. And I just can't, you know, let that go, because it's just sort of always gnaws at me. I mean, I feel like so many distractions in the world, and I get furious sometimes, not about certain things, but when people are so caught up in things that really to me, it's like, it just seems so trivial, and it's just on and on and on with this stuff. And it's like, what are we doing right now? So I do think that, yeah, there's like great times for reflection. And I think that's what life is made out of. You know, it's just like, all right, here's another reminder that you should be living and not just screwing around. I mean, it's time to go, you know, do the things you want to do. You know, it's sort of like, you know, swim the English Channel, build something, or write a book, or whatever it is. And it's like, do these things that you really have in your core, because I think that's what causes frustration and stress a lot of times, is that we just keep going down these roads that feel meaningless.
And take the leap and don't look back.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's one of the things I always admired about her is just her level of, you know, one, how she said yes to everything, but that she, even in, you know, in harder conversations and hard times and things she would, you know, offer to do, it was never, well, I wonder what the impact, you know, is going to have, negative impact it might have on me is. It was always, what can I do to help? You know, what can I do to offer this? And it was over and over. I mean, someone texted me and it was so great. So, you know, grandparents are so wonderful because they often give you, you know, second and third chances when no one else will. And I was just thinking to myself, like, one, how true that is, but two, like, shouldn't that be kind of how we always are?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How imperfect we are, and you know, it was you said it really well in terms of that, like how you felt, how I felt intrinsically, and there was, jealousy isn't the right word, but there was, I mean, there were times when I would look at her and I would not, again, jealousy isn't the word, but it's, I would feel like, man, I was like, that's how I want to be when I go. But also like a kick in the rear that's like, but you aren't even close to there yet.
Mm.
You know, like, you know, how different does your life need to be? Not drastically, right? You're on the right track. And one of the, one of the most meaningful things I was able to do that week was just kind of look back through the text messages that I had gotten from her in the last few months, and there's a letter I wrote her after Christmas that she opened up to me about, and how much it meant to her. And then, it was two other ones that was just, one was how proud of me she was, and the other one was how good of a father I was. And she was amazing in so many ways. But when you think about life and you think about the things that are important to us, and you think about the things that we spend so much time and effort thinking and worrying about that are important, really there's only like 2, 3, 4 things for us that really do mean a lot, that are important, right? And what you want to be remembered for, and it was and there were times during the week, and even the day that, as I watched her, she was all about Cadillacs. Her first car was a Cadillac, and she bought Cadillacs over and over and over and over again. Yeah, I mean, that's right. She was just a girl. And even like as we rolled up to the service, I was like, oh, her Hearst was a Cadillac. And I said, the things she would do to get one last ride in a Cadillac. And as she was pulling away and they were taking her, it was another beautiful day. And I just kind of like put my face up to the sky and just to feel the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy of just, and the warmth of it, and not like just small. It gave me a lot of peace, but also how few moments of the day we do just stop and either reflect, feel. We're just so damn busy with our heads down doing something else.
Yeah.
That, not only do we miss things, but we just miss feeling things.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go, all the stories my mom and my aunt, everybody shared at the service was, she was, she just lived it the way you should live. And, going back to, the what I talked to before the podcast is, I've talked about frequently on the, we always talk a lot about stress and strain and the impact of things on your life, and to try and cut as much fat off as you can, and just leave the lean stuff, and make life as, stress less as possible. Because let's be honest, a lot of the stuff we add to our life, we add on our own. We don't have to have it. We just add stress. Whether it's friendships, relationships, things we volunteer for, the fact that we can't say no. And the week that I was at my mom's, so I got there Sunday. I didn't leave till Sunday. I was there for 7 days. Was, even with how hard things were, I had not great sleep, but good sleep. But I talk a lot about tracking my resting heart rate and recovery and HRV and stuff, and it was some of the highest and best it's been in like months. And it wasn't because I was obviously having a good week. It was also because, and I talked to my mom about this, and I think that's why I felt a lot of strength, was that when you remove so much stress in your life, like I didn't basically work for a week. I didn't have to parent for a week. Didn't have to be, on the task as a spouse for a week. Not that those are all hard things, but it's when you think about how that consumes pretty much every minute of your day, right? Of my day, at least, as I'm on a Monday through Friday, it's Monday through Sunday, just life thing. You got to be a good spouse, you got to be a good father, you got to parent, you got to be in a relationship, you got to make sure you're doing the right things, and you got to work. That's my whole life, right? And then those are all gone, and I feel like how much that allowed me to raise myself to a different level of strength and responsibility and being present and being aware and being attentive. That was just like, it unlocked a lot of things that I feel are maybe get submerged, right, from stress. And that's everybody, right? Like, you can't take a vacation. You can't do that. That's not sustainable, nor is that, real. But it was just another reminder of the impact that stress has on our life, and just day-to-day stress. Like, we always talk about that with training, and how, removing certain things from your life or adding certain things, you have to realize the impact that they have, but how much freedom it allows you, to do things that as much as you can, right? Some stuff, living in a world, whether you're in a relationship or have kids or not, like there's always baseline standard stress. There's always is. And we talk about it often too, like at our run camp coming up. We've got a run camp in 2 weeks from today. How great everyone feels, how they're able to do these amazing runs of like long distances on really hard terrain, and they do it right for the same reason. They're away from life. You're away from being a spouse. You're away from having a parent. You're away from work. And how when you remove all that stress, like how powerful you feel, and the things you can do that you never. Because I don't think it's just a physical thing. I think what stress and strain, all these things have to do, and I think it lowers our confidence level, right? Like, because we don't have enough energy to fight back. We talk about this a lot with athletes that say, I'm sorry, I'm just struggling with motivation right now. It's like, well, you're not struggling with motivation. You don't have enough energy to be motivated. And we look at that as a self-indictment ourselves, because I think as people and individuals and athletes especially, we like to do anything we can to diminish our work ethic and criticize ourselves. We'll kind of jump at the chance to flog ourselves in the back. But in order to be motivated, you got to have energy. You got to have energy to be motivated. If your energy reserves are depleted and down because of a stressful event, or a job loss or a job gain or moving or whatever it is, or a relationship, like it inhibits your ability. So it's not just the unlocking of a mental and emotional like superpower, but it's the same physically, like I just mentioned at run camp. And it's not like it's not a special place, right? It's really showing you, which is, I think, something we can always like look back on and remember that should give us strength, is like when we're at and I also think that in a way, this is why a lot of athletes race so well, so surpassing their training when they get away from their job, parenting, being just every normal, even taking care of your dog. That's a stressor, right? It's still a responsibility. It's still someone else you have to worry about. And then you get away from all that and you're like, I can just kind of like do my thing for a little bit. And so I think that's, I think all those things are just worth thinking through and thinking about how we handle ourselves, on day to day. And then what do we look for, and how can we unlock, our abilities that are in there, but oftentimes submerged and smothered by the amount of stress and strain that we have each day.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about stress and, kind of getting away from it, whether it's your job or whatever. And I think this is one of the things I've always thought about, is like people like to go on, I've gone on vacations, right? That I was like, I just need a vacation, man. And you go out and you relax for the first few days or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel like a little, guilty, because now I'm just doing something that's not work or not related to whatever I have to do. And you talked about run camp, and why I think that's so big for so many people, for me included, is that, you remove stress by having a purpose. And it's almost like it's harder in a way, but, it's sort of like, finding passion in becoming a more fulfilled person. And to me, that's like what it's all about, because we can go on vacation and just sit around in a beach chair, and that works for a couple of days for sure. But then it's all of a sudden, then the demons start coming back or whatever. You start thinking about, shit, I got so much to do when I get back and all this kind of stuff. But if you go out and you do hard things and you're on point with really what aligns with your purpose in life and your passion in life, I think those are the things that really reduce stress the most. It's sort of, we can, go through the motions and do all these, chores every day, or these things to do. I mean, a lot of times it's, you just sort of get in a loop or whatever, and you start doing things that are busy work or whatever, and it's never fulfilling, because deep, at least for me, I always know deep down, I'm like, this isn't really the way I'm supposed to be going here. I'm, kind of faking it or something. And when I can really break down and start doing, and it's like you talk about micro goals and micro habits and things like that. It's just so simple sometimes, like lately, one of the things that, I'm always looking for those ways that can kind of sort of change my nervous system without trying, and that's, I've talked about plunging before, and I've been doing that every day. And that's been something there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works, and whenever, that's one of my things too, is like, I don't really care what the inner workings of my nervous system is. I'm not going to ever figure that out. Like what the science behind all that shit is. I don't know, but I do know that I can tell in my gut. And, we talk about gut instincts, and there's nothing more powerful than a gut instinct. You just know, right? So I've been doing that. I've been getting in the water. It's freezing cold. I'll just sit there. And every time I go down there, it's just getting a little bit easier. And there's something powerful about that. And one of the other things I've been trying to do is because I don't like really exercising right away in the morning, but I'll get on the treadmill and I'll just do walking for a while, and I'll do some incline walk and just get it going, right? And just build that habit, because for me to get up and go run sometimes is difficult, but I know I can just kind of slide downstairs and get on a treadmill and just start walking and get the blood going. And all of a sudden I've built another good habit, right? And I know that I'm closer to my purpose with that move. I don't have to make any kind of drastic change right today. I just have to inch in the right direction. I have to shift it. Just a little bit. And then maybe something, I don't even know what it is half the time, but maybe something now becomes easier. Maybe that's getting into training peaks a little earlier and responding to athletes and things of that nature. But that's what it's all about, man, is like kind of boiling things down. I can't get away from the idea that you were just kind of connected to the essence of life, and it just sort of stripped away like the things, that normally might bother you, but it's like, yeah, I can't, I'm here dealing with reality right now. This is like right here, and I'm with my family, and we're going through this together. And, maybe responding to certain text messages or social media just literally feels kind of silly at the moment, versus any kind of like, I need to do this. This is important.
Well, you said something that really resonated with me, in that it also, like, my number one, obviously outside of my own thoughts and feelings and grief, was my goal for the week was to be 100% committed to being unselfish and to show selflessness. Do you need anything? Can I get you anything? You guys need coffee? You may go get food. What can I do? You may do the laundry. You may take out the dog. You may go here and get this. You may go get food. Do you want to go check with the nurse? What can I do? None of it was about me. How can I help? What can I do to make things easier? Like that was the purpose, right, of the week. And obviously there was my own part of it. And if I'm being totally honest, I probably haven't totally 100% gone through the full cycle of grief, because you're you're constantly worrying about other people and wanting to be there for others and do that. So that's part of it, I'm sure. But and so when you remove a lot of stress, but you also allow yourself to be in a position where you can be, like you said, just really in touch and on point with it was a heightened level of awareness, I know, for me, and realizing what was important and being in the moment, and even having something, even being aware and present in the moment and feeling the things that I felt, being able to, there was like, when we got to hospice, there was like just out her window, there was a little courtyard area that, we started to sit at. Cause it was interesting. And how people are, we always kind of find ways for the world to work the way we want it to work and make sense. And, we got to hospice, and, her room, they don't do anything. They just basically say, we're here for you. You just tell us what to do. But we, just happened that the room was dark, probably more reflecting the mood right? I think it felt weird for them to have the lights on. Um, and it was dark and it was just insanely depressing. Insanely depressing. That's depressing already, but a dark room with it's quiet, everyone's just we were staring at her, waiting for her to take her last breath. And which is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I finally came back and I said, I'm going to go in there and check on her intermittently, but I'm no longer going to sit in there and spend, that's not how I want to remember her, nor how she would want to be remembered. And I don't know that it's doing me any good in my sadness and my grief. And that's not what she would want. And that was on a Tuesday, so we tried to spend less time in there and outside and in the other room and talking. And what it also allowed us to do was like, instead of, because it almost feels weird to share, funny stories and things about family and laugh and smile in that room. Right? It almost feels like it's disrespectful. But when we would leave the room and go outside and sit, and we go out in this open family area, we would smile, we'd laugh. Right. We would talk about things that, were great memories to share. And then as we were, the day that she passed away, on Wednesday, I just sent my mom a text and I said, let's make sure all the windows are open. The blinds are open. The sun is coming in, because this is the day. This is the exact type of day where she would be sitting out on the sunroom on the back porch, soaking in the sunshine. That she would not be in a dark room. She would be soaking in every bit of sun she could possibly imagine. And I just said, I'm not going to come in early in the day. I'm going to hang out at home. I want to give you, you and my aunt some time alone. And I think I told you, I was sitting in a breakfast place about 5 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was done eating and I just got this feeling. I was just sitting there. You texted me at the exact moment. I was just staring at my empty bowl.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey man, how you doing? I was like, I'm just like, it was the saddest I had been the entire trip. And I just felt this like overwhelming sadness come over me. And then I got up and then I walked next door to grab my aunt and my mom some Starbucks and the same piece of banana bread and the same blueberry muffin I've been getting them the last 5 days without asking. I've asked every other day, but didn't want to interrupt, and it didn't. And I just went ahead and got it. And then as I'm walking out the door, my mom texts me, and I'm like, I'm not even 5 minutes away. And she just said she's passed away. And I was bummed that I wasn't there, but it was just got to be the two of them. But I just thought to myself, she was waiting for the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
She was waiting to feel that, because maybe she had been fighting, the last day or two, because she was like, I didn't live my life in the dark. I didn't live my life in this depressing state. I lived my life in the sunshine. I lived it doing things as much as I could. I'd have been sitting on the front, on the back patio, in the screened-in porch, in the sunroom. That's how I'd be spending my day, and that's how I'm going to go. And then she finally got it, and that's when she went. And I told you this before we went on, as we were, after a few hours, she had passed away. A whole family was outside. We were out by this little water fountain. It was peaceful, and we heard like this, door open, about 20 yards away, and a woman who was there in hospice was still conscious and be able to make decisions. It looked like she had just asked the nurse to wheel her outside in her bed. And she was out there with her granddaughters and her daughters, it looked like. And she was just like, she just wanted to be out there, like in the sun, feeling it. She was holding her daughter's hands, and it was just like, just like those moments, one are so special. And I was very like, it was sad, but I was also like, internally, I was not, didn't want to smile, at them, but it was it was a hard moment for them, but it was just how happy you could be for that to be the way you decide to, it's very representative of the way that that woman probably lived, right? I want to feel the sun on my face. I want to be outside. She had leaves in her hands, that were falling off the trees. And then that moment they had obviously was just incredibly special. But it was also like really interesting because we hadn't seen that at all the whole entire time we'd been there. And I kind of thought like that's, maybe the world saying like that was my grandmother's way of leaving too, is like feeling the sunshine on her face and leaving. And just how important it is, right? To leave a mark to where, and being consistent with how you live and what you do. And because that ultimately but impacts the way in which you go. And just, how, and it could all be meaningless, but it's not to me. And it's kind of like you said about the cold plunge. It's like, I don't know what it does to me neurologically or, physically, but I'll know that it works. And that's all I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think oftentimes we, especially triathletes, like we try so hard to figure out exactly why we know something works, only to find something we think might work better along the way. And then we get distracted, right? And I think athletes do it all the time. In the desperate need and search and desire to know exactly the answer to everything, when we know something's working, in that pursuit of knowing exactly why, we get distracted and distance ourselves from it, right? Yeah. But it was just she wouldn't have picked a better way to go. It's weird, like when they get to that age, everyone dies, you still just don't think they are ever going to. It's just like it's like they're immortal, right? And especially people that you hold in such high esteem, like you can't ever think that, what's the world going to be like when they're not here? How different, things are. And then the tremendous legacy that she left with not just her close family and friends, but, I shared a little bit of this in our weekly email, but you think about the lasting legacy you leave, and it's never with money or with material things. It's your impact on people. And I mean, I wouldn't be here. I got my chance to go to treatment and get sober because of her. And I have a tremendous amount of not just gratitude, but commitment to continuing to show her that, and I already have. I feel confident enough I can say that the last 10 years has shown that it was a good investment to make in me. I obviously had to be the one to work to make it work, but that opportunity was from her. And then that continued commitment and and I just think just remembering the opportunities that we have as individuals and how we can impact people, and how every decision we make or don't make has an impact on everything, the slightest decision and the slightest thing, and that actions are so important in how we treat people, and then also I think it also reminded me, and I'm sure the athletes that I work with have probably seen this a lot this week, is I've tried to do a lot better job of, I'm not a rah-rah coach, that I'm never a you crush this workout or you dominate it or you suck. I just don't operate like that. But I do recognize how important it is to remind people that you're proud of their effort. And I think oftentimes athletes are just way too hard on themselves. And then going back to, in that endless pursuit of trying to exactly know why and do the things exactly, we get distracted and lost on the way and end up lost ourselves, farther from the goal or displaced from the journey. Is that being proud of your effort is everything. It's so much more significant and impactful and meaningful to be proud of your effort than it is to be happy with the result. Because results are things we don't really have control of, right? Depends on who shows up, depends on the weather, depends on mechanical, depends on nutrition, depends on so many things. Result's a result, but are you happy with the effort that you're putting in? Are you happy with how you're treating people? Are you happy with the effort you're putting in to be forgiving, to show grace, to accept people, to not hold things over their head? What are you expecting from yourself? Are you putting in effort? Are you being lazy in certain areas? Are you, allowing yourself, to get distracted along the way, and then blaming other people for your journey taking longer, you know? And it's just, there's so many things, that it reminds you of. And I think the hardest part though is to continue on in that way of, being of being present and aware of those things on a daily basis, because it is, as soon as you get right back to real life, you're getting, as soon as you get back to the stress, it is all consuming and overwhelming. And it does. I think it submerges so much of what we feel and how we want to operate and what we can actually genuinely work through. When we're constantly stimulated by stress in the things in life and the responsibilities we have, that, it's amazing what I think we've put ourselves, the situations as a society we put ourselves in, and the level of importance I think that we feel to have this, and yeah, life can be busy, and you can want to be busy, you can want to do things, and sometimes that does make you busy. But how we have become this standard level of fine and of numbness, right? With stress and not wanting to go anywhere, not wanting to go do anything. I think I'll just sit at home. I don't want to go meet for coffee. Can we do a Zoom instead? And connections and I mean, it's because I looked this up to my mom, and the average life expectancy now is 77. She was 94. And it is absolutely zero secret how she went that much longer than the average person. It wasn't because she had a perfect diet. It wasn't because she had, all these things, all these hacks that people will, the special supplements and vitamins. And, she escaped death more times in the last 10 years than I can count on my hand. And, she was, at her age, it's like, the smallest thing is she just has with things that have happened to her and surgeries and illness. And, but it, you think about, the things, and it was, it's purpose, community, and being around people is what not only just makes you feel alive, but has a, as I was talking to my mom about it, it doesn't guarantee you anything, right? But it does improve the chances of you being able to withstand whatever does happen. And I think we spend way too much time avoiding or trying to circumvent and bubble proof our lives from anything bad happening, that we don't live, we wait to die. But two, when something inevitably does happen, we've become so weak and we have such a small support system that we end up succumbing or failing or coming up short in whatever it is, not because of the, what's actually happening, but because our commitment to, avoidance versus our commitment to prevention, right? Which is, people always say, eat right, exercise, get a lot of sleep, have a lot of friends, go see people, laugh and smile. That's it. That is it. But you can't bottle it up and you can't sell it. But that's that's the way to live, and that's the way to have life.
Yeah, and it's amazing how hard that is for so many of us. Just to do the simple things that we know work. And like you said, I mean, you don't have to know why. I think a lot of us get into this sport because it forces us to go soak in the sun and breathe fresh air. And we don't need to know the inner workings of why that makes us feel better. It should just be okay.
Yep. So true. So very true. And that, folks, is how you take 2 minutes off your transition time. As always, we love you guys. We were sorry to miss you last week, but we hope you do the same thing to us when life calls and you need to be there for people. Is leave it all. Don't worry about the things that don't matter, because that's always a great reminder of the things you can take with you, the things that you ultimately at your core know you have to keep in times like these. So take care of yourself. Make sure you tell people you love them. Make sure you tell people you're proud of them, and do something with your life. And don't sit around. You never know. Even at 94, you never know. So as always, we love you. We appreciate you. We'll see you again on Thursday. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Looking for coaching for 2024. You want to change things up, do things different, or just be a happier, healthier version of yourself. Check out the coaching tab and find the coach that's right for you. If you need anything from Mike, he is available, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. See you, dude. See you.